When you consider the social environment of most video games, the Animal Crossing community is a utopia. Built on a cooperative game about enjoying the small bits of life with talking animals and decoration, it makes sense that its fans would be just as wholesome, but like, oh my goodness. Everyone is incredibly sweet and caring, so eager to help out, always willing to be your friend. The Animal Crossing fanbase isn't just a marvel within video game communities, but social structures as a whole. Now, with that said, is it perfect? Hell fucking no. Yeah, today's video is going to be a bit spicier because it hasn't always been sunshine and rainbows. Despite the mostly angelic history of the Animal Crossing community, we've hit a few rough patches. So join me today as we take a trip down memory lane. This is the 7 deadly sins of the Animal Crossing community. Okay, so let's start off with the most common one I believe we've all witnessed: greed. Animal Crossing may not be a competitive game, but it does indeed have an economy, which means, oh damn, there it is. And anytime you split up resources between a group of people, no matter the fact that it's literally infinite, you are bound to run into some greedy ass bitches. Like I said, 99% of this community is full of people who love to help, will straight up give you things, and will vibe with you just to enjoy the company. The other 1% are people who charge entry fees.
What if you wanted to go to heaven, but God said,
This is a controversial concept that has definitely existed before, but really took off with New Horizons. It goes like this. If you want to go to an island that has Celeste or Sahara or most prominently high turnip prices, then the owner may charge you a fee to enter the island. And I get it. Demand is high with New Horizons. You can open a queue and have hundreds in line immediately. You may as well cut down on some of the requests by asking for something, right? But this shit got to be ridiculous. Full stacks of Nook Miles tickets or gold ore to enter an island? Like, what on the island could be worth more than that? And tips. Tips are tips because they are voluntary, but required tipping is no different than an entry fee, just so I can catalog one goddamn blender? At launch, sites like Turnip Exchange, Twitter, and even Reddit were packed with these kinds of demands, and even more surprisingly, a lot of them were successful. Thankfully, with time, they're now viewed as generally shameful practices. Also memes. But those early days of New Horizons were something else. I feel like if you were there during launch, you probably have a story, which I'd love to hear in the comments. If not, you've likely at least heard of the next one, the infamous villager market. You know, dropping loads of bells or Nook Miles tickets so that you may convince someone else's villagers to move to your town. That's what Animal Crossing is all about, not just bonding with the animals you come across, it's about purchasing the prettiest ones. So, this has been around for years, hiked up a bit with New Leaf, but oh god, the atrocities committed with New Horizons. If you want a villager that you don't have and are too impatient to get them naturally, just find someone online or go to Nookazon and then be prepared to pay 400 Nook Miles tickets or 10 million bells, or pay 600 actual US dollars.
This is illegal, you know.
$600 is a lot of money for a virtual cat. If you have that kind of money just lying around, you know what else you can buy? 10 copies of the game, 75 hot and ready pizzas, a PS3 in the year 2006, or an actual cat that you can then dress up however you want. Don't do that though, adopt one. Particularly with Raymond, people were going so bonkers for this cat, it could be a whole separate video if it already isn't. It became somewhat of a meme to how greedy people had been. I remember one infamous post that charged people not to come get Raymond, but just on their island so that they could see him, a Raymond viewing experience. And then there was Judy, and then there was Marshall, and then there was Sherb. I think you get it. New Leaf definitely had its share of marketplace greed, stuff like the regional items and 7-Eleven set that came with big price tags. We all remember the bow fiasco, but let me try and explain why it was so bad with New Horizons specifically. For one, there was a massive influx of new players with more and more people playing than ever before. Obviously, someone was gonna be a dick. And 2, there were so many new items, but with restrictions. You know, 5 items a day at the shop, tons of variants, exclusivity to your airport, all that stuff. When it gets to be this niche, only a few people are gonna end up having the stuff you're looking for, and they are going to be wild with it, a la Nookazon, but let me give my own example. Early on in release, one of the things that I wanted the most was none other than the green mum, something I wanted for my Christmas and COVID theme, don't ask. I had seen it reported in a guide, but when I went to look it up on the trade boards, people actually debated its existence. I couldn't seem to grow my own, and there were none for sale. Lo and behold, the first person to start selling them online wanted a boatload. But they had no direct competitors, so their prices, while annoying, were the default. There were plenty more examples, a yellow fridge, a blue floor light, an Apple box. They've become more spread out with time, and surely everyone has that one friend who has the massive catalog, Natalie. But launch was a crazy time, and a very greedy one at that. Next up, we have Pride. I'm sure there's a joke to be made somehow about what Pride means today versus the deadly sin called Pride, but I think I have to wait until June to make it. To be proud is to be overly conceited and self-obsessed, undermining others and holding yourself to a false sense of superiority, and in Animal Crossing we see this expressed in the form of islands and villagers. This actually applies to all the games, but mostly shows up with the past two. You've probably dealt with that one person who thought of themselves as better than you because they were able to make something neat out of their town or island, or because they had something or someone, or because they liked something or someone. You know, that braggadocious, snobby, stuck-up player who's just full of themselves because they have all the dreamies or the zodiac items. Blah. Look, dude, I'm proud of my island, but I'm not flexing it on everybody except for the part where I just did. I do believe creativity deserves recognition and appreciation, but the way some players hold it over other people's heads is insulting. There's a whole additional category I wrote in this part that's dedicated to the design code culture. Basically, like, a lot of New Horizons influencers don't want to be plagiarized, so they want credit for everything and take it even as far as furniture placement. Thus, other people call them entitled, and this drama is still happening. I don't know. I'd dive more into it, but I'm really just trying to enjoy myself this project, so... But pride is only one half of the bigger picture. Anyone can have an inflated ego because of what they do have, but the flip side to that is envy or jealousy over what you lack. This is one I see a lot even today, and it breaks my heart. Anyone else never happy with their island? Why does everyone else's look better than mine? I have serious island envy. I'm not confident with my island. Does anyone else think their island sucks compared? Yep, so this one can be summarized as nice islands on social media make others question their own, and it doesn't take but 6 brain cells to put that together. We're in the same day and age where studies about Instagram are constantly proving that a comparative perspective is damaging towards our self-esteem. Of course, people showing off their very well done islands is going to make others feel insecure. Homegirl made a whole ass Starbucks. You think my lake with a shoe in the middle of it is comparable? But what upsets me the most about island envy is when people feel like they can't play Animal Crossing because of it. I've known so many people who are turned away from the series because New Horizons has given it this reputation of world building, and is it that? It sure is. But New Horizons also has collecting, progression, social simulation, never mind the quality of it. Yes, the decoration stuff is nice, but as I've hopefully communicated in any one of the retrospectives, especially the 2 on New Horizons, Animal Crossing is so much more than that. It's easily the thing that the community is most vocal about, but do you really think I'd put 1,500 hours into this game if I couldn't go fishing? So to anyone who's ever experienced this feeling and felt driven away because of it, I'm gonna give you the best piece of advice. Focus on yourself and play the older games. Oh God, can we just skip this one, please? Like, I'm really not comfortable diving into all... Lust, I'm not explaining it. This video, I'm not explaining it. Rule 34, I don't think I can explain it despite the literal 8-word definition. Let's just say we all have our favorite villagers, but some may like them more than others, and in September of 2021, the mainstream kind of caught wind of that via TikTok, where our favorite little Egyptian cat spread everywhere, and when I say spread, I need salvation. It didn't matter if you were on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, the song or a descending frame from the original video would find itself anywhere, to which a poor, ill-fated individual would curiously ask, where is this from? And then they would be redirected to funny cats. Rule 34 has existed forever. No Animal Crossing game is safe from it. Same with Zone, same with -8, and I honestly could care less what you do in the privacy of your own web browser. But of course, the internet had to be the internet and make sure everyone was aware of Anka dropping that anchor. Okay, all right, hold on. Also, if you want another angle of lust, then there's this. It's a game about fucking talking animals, guys. Come on. Wrath. Can you think of anyone who's ever been angry? Like, oh, I don't know, maybe because they're upset with the developers and have gone on several rants demanding things or bashing the state of the game. Just throwing ideas out there. There's 2 examples I'm gonna talk about. They both deal with New Horizons. First, we have another tale from launch, because when COVID locks you down, Animal Crossing becomes your whole life. the good and the bad. When the game first came out, players discovered that Animal Crossing New Horizons allowed only one island per Switch. That means any secondary users can live there, but everyone is locked to one island under the progress of the person who started it. Obviously, they did not like this. And so they started to review bomb the game. If you are not familiar with what this is, it's the act of going to Metacritic and putting a low user score, and it gradually brings the overall rating of the game down. It has literally never accomplished anything in history, and it certainly didn't this time. You can still only have one island per console, duh. Every single Animal Crossing game has been like this, the exceptions being if you bought several memory cards or cartridges for the handheld titles. However, previous entries have not always been this diverse for character slots. Before New Leaf, pretty much everyone had equal privilege, and now there's the mayor or the island leader. I can also imagine Nintendo was trying to push more Switch units like this, but unfortunately this lined up with the pandemic Switch shortage. So even if households were willing to drop a ton of extra money to have another island, they'd still struggle to find a console at MSRP. I totally get why people were angry. But let me just say, review bombing does nothing. Save your breath and make a social media post instead, or a YouTube video, man, I don't know. Yeah, in case you haven't figured this out, this is the sin that I'm the most guilty of. One of the largest annoyances in the community was just all the constant criticism, people never seeming to be happy with the game and always throwing it back at Nintendo. For the most part, I would call this sulking and whining. But for our second story, a particularly highlighted area in history was E3 2021. When New Horizons had been so stale, fans needed it to have an update. And when there wasn't... Vividly do I remember going to the internet so happy to discuss the first new Metroid game in 10 years and Mario Party. But then I was hit with this boiling atmosphere from my Animal Crossing corners, and I thought to myself, this is awesome. Being angry or negative or even feeling entitled to updates, none of that stuff is pleasant. I went into this last video, it's not fun to complain to or about anything, and it's definitely not fun to hear it either. And while I'm sorry to have been a perpetrator of that, let me just say, it's not like me or any of these people were upset for no reason. I love New Horizons, Game of the Year 2020, but I also think it needs a lot of work, and it's important to bring that to Nintendo's attention because that's how they learn too. We saw the community light on fire that E3, but at the very next Direct, we saw the roots of the largest update in the game, which was widely praised. Long story short, backlash is effective, you should always get angry, because that's how problems are solved. Is there a lesson about being more appreciative of the aspects we enjoy and balancing that with constructive criticism? Nah. Yes. Gluttony. To gluttonize is to overly consume to the point where said consumption is pointless and ineffective, aka it means to binge. To binge. Do you know where I'm going with this? This sin is an interesting one because not only does it apply to every single Animal Crossing game, it's also the only one on today's list that doesn't have to be an issue for anyone else but the person doing it. But for some reason it is. Alright guys, let's talk about it. Time travel. First of all, do I do it? And yes, I'm labeling it a sin of the Animal Crossing community, but it doesn't have to be. For some reason, people are particularly offended at the act of time traveling, which generally supports a binge model of game playing. Because Animal Crossing is meant to follow real-world time, but lots of people like me don't like to wait and would rather experience it at our own pace, so we fiddle-do-diddle with the clock. Enter war. A lot of people will criticize time traveling and say it's because it's not how the game is meant to be played, and they are actually correct, the developers having called time travel a shame. But others have expressed resentment for time travel simply for reasons that delve back into envy and pride. Essentially, you only have achieved so much because you've time traveled and thus you are cheating. Fuck all that. Do you want to know what I think? My time with GameCube was so interesting because none of this was real. No multiplayer meant that the community hardly existed. If you were talking about an Animal Crossing community, then you were referring to your town and villagers. And if you time traveled, no one gave a shit. But all of a sudden, Wild World comes out, people mess with the clock, and I'll see you in hell, Christopher. If you are using your time travel to obtain things, then flaunt it against the community, then yeah, piss off. But if you are time traveling because you work B shift and the only time you can play the game is from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. when the entire town is asleep, then who cares? People seem to be more upset with time travel itself than the implications of why they're doing it in the first place. Some people just want to experience the game faster. Others literally can't play on the clock. Like, what about holidays that all have us busy? I know for a fact I would never have experienced New Year's if not for time travel. My advice is still the same. Focus on you. Don't moderate how others play, and if people try to do that to you, hit them with a 1, 2, or a bit. We end the day with sloth, which is the most complex of the 7 deadly sins, but generally laziness. The unwilling attitude to commit, the slow and reluctant nature to action, or basically just inaction. It's a sin that we all experience when we stop. You have no idea what day it will happen, you probably don't even know that it's happening, but there will come a time you set the game down for the last time. You'll say to yourself that you'll pick it up tomorrow, but you get busy or decide to play something else, and then days will pass, months, years even. Of course, no one holds on to Animal Crossing forever, and this is perfectly natural, but this is a sin of community. It's not just letting go of the game, it's letting go of everyone, and goddamn, forget this video, I just really miss Nick, okay? So there it is, the 7 deadly sins of the Animal Crossing community. I got a score of 4 out of 7. What did you get? Though these games are all about the enjoyment you find in simple things with a strong sense of union, no congregation of beings is perfect ever. That's a very basic lesson that you learn from Animal Crossing GameCube. There will be greedy people, there will be angry people, there will be horny-ass construction workers watching Ankazone on their lunch, but all of that will forever be outshined by the generous, the caring, the welcoming players who give you a whole new reason for logging on to the game. You are the reason the Animal Crossing community is such a pure circle, and I just want to give my thanks.